My name is Becky Erbelding. I'm a historian at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. This is a photograph that was taken between the end of May 1939 and the beginning of June 1939, sometime in those couple of days, from the deck of the ship the MS St. Louis. So the St. Louis was a special ship sailing from Germany in the spring of 1939, bringing 937 mostly Jewish passengers to Cuba. Many of the passengers were waiting to immigrate to the United States. They were on the waiting list, and they thought, I need to at least get out of Germany. And so they got papers to land in Cuba, and they were planning to wait in Cuba. At the same time, the person who issued the visas to most of them, the landing permits, was corrupt. And he had made, some estimate, as much as $1 million in 1939 money, which is about $14 or $15 million in today's money, just in 1 year selling these forged landing permits. And unbeknownst to the passengers, there had been anti-Semitic riots, anti-Jewish riots in Cuba around that time. And so the Cuban government, while the ship was still sailing on its way, decided that it was not going to permit the vast majority of the passengers to land. And so what you see in this photo is that the ship has arrived, it's in the harbor in Havana, and the passengers are not being allowed off the ship. This photo is from the collection of a mother and daughter. The mother and daughter had managed to get onto the St. Louis, and they were hoping to reunite with the husband. So Werner Lowenson had been arrested during an anti-Jewish pogrom, Kristallnacht, in November 1938, and he had managed to escape to Cuba. He managed to leave Germany, get to Cuba, and then he arranged for his wife and daughter to get on the St. Louis in the hopes of joining him in Cuba. Obviously, that didn't happen. They weren't allowed off the ship. For many people on board the St. Louis who had loved ones in Cuba, that might have been the last time they ever saw each other. It was from this tiny boat yelling up to the St. Louis, hoping that people could hear them. And the ship did not go back to Germany. It ended up docking in Belgium, and the passengers on the St. Louis were divided between Great Britain, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. And we now know that of the 937 passengers on the St. Louis, 254 of them would be murdered during the Holocaust. The thing I find really interesting about this photo is that there's a hand in it. You can see the hand. You can see that it's pointing kind of at some of these small boats. And you can imagine that the family is saying, this is where Werner is. This is where my dad is. This is where my husband is. He's in one of these little boats. Look how close we are to finding safety. And the Western Hemisphere, Cuba, the United States, Canada, did not let these passengers in. So this photo is from the collection of a mother and daughter, and the mother and daughter ended up, when the ship was sent back to Europe, they disembarked in Belgium, and they lived in Belgium for about 9 months. Finally, their paperwork for the United States came through, and they were able to immigrate to the United States in February 1940. So they were very lucky. They did not ever have to live under Nazi occupation again, and they were finally able to reunite with Werner, who they had last seen in the small boat coming up to the dock, or to the side of the St. Louis.